We'd like to welcome each and every individual to the Voices of Integrity podcast for buying a business. We were gonna do the should I have partners? And so, but Jason and Ben aren't here, and Kenny's not here, and so they're not here. So Luke, I told him, I said, I'm more than happy to do that. I'm more than happy to do that if you want me to do the lesson without them. And Luke said, um, well, we could do, how about talking about, so Luke owns Dreamscape Creations, which is construction company with Kenny. And so Kenny is looking at going into law enforcement. And so becoming a police officer. And so Luke went ahead and said it's a lot. He's handling it a lot harder. It's a lot harder for Luke than he thought it would be. So Luke's to be commended for being self-aware and transparent. Like, hey, I'm having a hard time with this. So Luke, what would you like to go over today on it?
Um, so there's like, what do you do with the information you have? So one, there's obviously a level of care. I don't know, like for me, in a relationship between a boy and a girl, it's not good if one person cares more than the other.
Right?
That's same with, or I think that's same with business, anything, any relationship, I guess. Like, do you? Do you expect the other person, for me, for Kenny, like, does he still care as much as I do, or does he care more? And then let's say he cares more, or he doesn't care as much. Like, how do I process that? Or I don't want to not care, but yet,
Right? Like right? It's like you got to be kidding. Um, and so this is I think this is going to be put in this is going to be put in the um in the backstage passes, but maybe it's in a drill down. Here's the downside stories of having partners. Like it's just hard. And so um and if you're a spiritual person, or especially like a Christian, I can't say for other people. I'm not going to speak for, Muslims or Jews or others, but for Christians, if somebody says this is what I feel God's calling me to do, what do you say to it? And what do you do? And it's not easy. And so
right? And it's not, like, I don't want to be a reason that he doesn't do it.
right, if that's what his life vision, if that's what he's supposed to do it, so you're in a really hard situation. And so I think it's important that Kenny knows that. like like this is not easy. And so do we go ahead, and does Kenny go ahead, and before he does that, does he go ahead and need to find a replacement for him? Or does he go ahead and does he need to get everything in place where he's not needed in the same role he's in right now? I mean, he can still own the company. That's one of the benefits of owning a company, is if you have people who, who are doing the work, but if you're an owner and you're doing the work, well, that company is far more vulnerable to you. So when I was 23 years old, I went ahead and took a position, 100% straight commission position right out of college. Um, Probably most of you have heard the story, so I won't go into the whole story, but it's an interesting story, one that often doesn't get shared as part of the other story. And that is, soon, within 6 months, I told the president of the company, I said, I want to get into a C level a chief executive. So, like a vice president of sales. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, I'm 23 years old. I'm not selling that great now. So he's like, okay. I said, but what I want, so I was 23. I said, I'm going to work for 7 years. And when I turn 30, I'm going to work myself out of a job. I'm going to have other people that are going to be able to take over for me. And I want ownership in the company so I can make money that way. And I'm going to go ahead and pursue my life vision. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 7 years. I'm going to give you 7 years of my life. And this is what I'm looking at doing. And that's, it's kind of a Christian thing. He was Catholic, but I don't, and he's like, well, and he was honest. He said, well, Mark, that's not what we're really looking for. I said, well, okay, that's fine. I agree. I'm good with that. And he said, I told him, I said, well, don't promote me then, because that's what's going to happen. And he promoted me to a regional manager and then a marketing manager. And I kept telling him, this is what's going to happen. And then vice president of sales. And I was 26 years old, on track to make over $460,000 a year, had 3 kids, and had $1 million of equity in the company. And I saw what they call, Luke, the golden handcuffs come out. And the golden handcuffs is they pay you so much money that you can't walk away. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be handcuffed. I mean, there were some other things too, like he didn't honor a bonus that he put in place, and it's $5,000, and so I'm like, well, I can't trust this guy. I can't trust this guy to go ahead and do it, to give me what he agrees to do. So I'm not going to give another. I'd given 3 years of my life. I'm not going to give another 4 years of my life. I'm going to pursue something else. So I resigned. And so, that company was eventually sold. I left that company, and, who knows? Nobody knows what it would have been sold for if I would have stayed with the company. And so I've been in the situation where Kenny's in, and the choice I made is I made the choice. I wasn't going to leave the company until I was replaced. I thought I could do it in 7 years. In a way, I did it in 4 years, and I just walked away with, nothing, which again was my choice. And so, if Kenny understands, so I think it can be better for Dreamscape. And I think Kenny can actually replace himself. And that may be with a new owner buying him out. I don't know. Or maybe him still staying at an owner, but he's not going to be working in the business anymore. He's going to be working on it. Or he might go ahead and work in it some, and in addition to working on it. So it's going to put more pressure on him, because, he's got to go ahead and figure out, does he want to still own the company? I believe he still does want to have ownership. And so I think it can go ahead and work out. I think he'll have a chance of, if he sticks with it, and he makes sure that he replaces himself so the company doesn't need him, he will have an experience that almost nobody in the world has. And the company will be far better because of it. So I think it's communicating with the partners. Here's my goals. This is what I want. But it's hard, right? It's hard because it's like, now you're like, okay, it's not like a divorce, but it kind of is. Like, it's like, okay, I was kind of counting on this and now it's not. And so, so it takes the wind, it can take the wind out of your sails tremendously. And it can be hard really, really hard, for customers, recruiting, everything, if you have, 50% of the working ownership to leave. And so mentally, Luke, um, it's going to test you and grow your faith and your work ethic and your discipline and everything else a lot. And there's going to be some amazing things that come from it. Now, how do I know that? It's happened in my life multiple times. So once I had, with my company I own now, one of my companies that I've owned for the longest, 34 years, I left that company, started Synergy Solutions, and I had three other business partners. And I was the one working in the business. They were investing into the business. They did some, so it wasn't they weren't doing anything, but they did some work, but they were providing, 51. So they thought that I wasn't ready to have controlling ownership in the company. And so they gave me 49%. They took 51% with the agreement that after 15 months it would switch and I would own 51 and they would own 49. And at 12 months, they said they were done with it. Now, to their compliment, they continued to invest for the next 3 months into the company. They didn't just pull the plug, they honored the agreement, what was on paper at least. I felt betrayed. And I'm just like, you guys are doing what? Like, they're 3/4 of the talent. We had burned through most all of our financial. I had put everything on the line. And I literally started crying. And I went home to my wife, and, we had 3 small children at the time. And I'm like, honey, they pulled the plug. They're not going to continue. So there was no way, Luke. So it was computer programming. They provided all the programming. I was going to lose all of that, 3/4 of the leadership team, and 50% of the money being, and we had pretty much run out of money. There was no way that Synergy was going to survive. It's humanly impossible. And we went another, 3 months, and then we went, I think, another 3 months after that, and it wasn't looking good. We had developed a brand new product and it wasn't selling like it. I mean, it was brutal. And we had like 30 days left, and then we were out of money. And I went home, and my wife, she said, we only have 30 days of money left. I'm like, yeah. She's like, what is your plan? I'm like, I'm not really sure. And I had 4 things that I said, I'm going to try these 4 things. And I was pretty confident, Luke, that they weren't going to work, because nothing had worked up to that point for 18 months. And I'm like, yeah, we're done. And 3 out of the 4 things kicked in and worked, and I never got to the 4th one. And somehow we turned it around. And so the amount of faith, the amount of confidence, so I bought out their interest. And so those are things, Luke, that you learn in business and life. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Faith is very powerful. Hard work is very powerful. When you look at things as this is going to be positive, I think, Luke, a lot of times, if not most of the time, things are positive because you think it's going to be positive, it's going to be positive, and you work to make it positive.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just been in the last 4 years that I've gone into partnership. So the first one was, I had a minority, I had 6% ownership in the company, and that didn't work out good for me. Then I had 49 and 51. That didn't work out good for me. So the next 30 years, I did not go into partnership with people. And I have a business partner over in Pakistan, and he was talking to me a few weeks back, and he said, "What's it like being in partnership, and especially with family and stuff?" I said, "It's brutal. It's messy. It's hard. It's high risk. There's so much discouragement." But um, I think that if I had had the right partners and or if I had had the right partners and or the right systems in place for partnership, I could have probably accomplished what took 30 years in probably 5 years. But it's hard. It's really, really, really hard. I mean, big time hard. But that's what makes a man or a woman. That's what makes you to where you just go ahead and you learn so much during the adversity. And it's cool. It's cool to look back and have the faith. It's cool to look back and say, how did we survive? It's cool to look back and see, with you, you're 20 years old. And so it's cool to go ahead. I didn't have anybody like me in my life, even close. And I wish I had. I wish I had because, like, I'm flying blind and I don't know. You're going to be fine. Dreamscape is going to be fine. Like, you guys are going to excel. You guys are going to grow. You're going to find the way. And Kenny's going to, like, I believe in Kenny and what he's going to do. And it's not black and white. You guys are, I think he's going to be considerate of you. I think you're going to be considerate of him. You're not going to hold him back. And he's not going to go ahead and I think he's going to greatly consider you. And I don't know what that working out great is going to be. I don't know what that is. I just know it's going to be that way because you're going to work. Kenny's going to work. There's other people. You got a great team, great process, great things going on. And so it's going to be exciting to see it all unfold. Other questions, Luke?
Like, so another thing, there's also other opportunities that I want to sometime pursue, but I don't think now is the time. Like, do I use this and make now the time as well?
Yeah, and those are things that only you can decide on, right?
Right.
And so, you know, I mean, you guys could sell off the assets of the company and stuff like that. Um, and you guys could do okay. Not terrible, not great. You guys could do that. That's an option. I would tend to agree with you. I don't think the timing is like I didn't have, you know, another 8 companies for 30 years. Now I have better systems, more knowledge, wisdom, capital. I have a whole bunch of things in place where I can do that. Um, I can do that. And so I think you get one beachhead, one successful company up and going, and then you go ahead and look at, well, there's other opportunities too. But you may have the networks or the connections or the systems where you might be able to go ahead and buy a company, merge a company. There might be other things that you could potentially do. And it might be, you don't know. I wouldn't categorically say yes, and I wouldn't categorically say no. I think as a general rule, you've got 2 years under your belt. That's better than not having 2 years. But there's a whole bunch of things that you have to learn for sure.
Hmm.
Other questions, Luke?
Is there something I should be asking or could be asking?
I don't think so. I think, making sure that you and Kenny are good in communication. You need to share your thoughts. And if you both communicate your thoughts and you're honest with one another and you clearly communicate with one another and you keep everybody in the loop, I think that nobody gets hurt, everybody's stronger because of it. It's when people don't communicate, if people aren't honest, if people aren't direct with their feelings, their thoughts, and the impact of what it is, um, that's when people get hurt. And that's a shame because it doesn't have to be that way.
Hmm.
I think you're doing good. I was just talking to somebody that, has known you for 6 months, and I've said, Kenny, I've known him for 4 years roughly. And man, he's changed so much in 3, 4 years that I've known him. It's just day and night. I've known you for 2 years, and the difference between where you were at 2 years ago and where you're at now is it's amazing. It's absolutely crazy amazing. And I talked to somebody who's only known you for 6 months, and they said the same thing. They said Luke is so much different now than he was 6 months ago, and that's really cool. So I think you're doing
Why
good.
is that, or what ways?
I think it's maturity in how you handle things. I think it's I think it's maturity in how you handle things. I think it's like you're not as here, right and left, you're not as roller coastery, you're consistent. I think a lot of it's because you've had to develop other people, and so you've seen how frustrating they can be to you, and I think you've internalized that, and and able to say, if they're this frustrating to me, I'm probably this frustrating to other people I work with, Kenny and others. And so I think that's growing you up a lot. I think there's sacrifices, there's risk, there's work, there's a whole bunch of things that you've done, that has helped you to grow far more than you could have ever grown if you'd have had a real job, for sure. Anything else, sir, you have?
No, I don't think so.
All right. So, I don't know. Maybe we put this one here. Should I have partners? Um, well, there's different types of partnerships that you could have. So I think we'll put that in, put that in a backstage pass, or put it in here specific challenges or case studies, that you could have down there, and we can go back and pick this one up another time. If you have any questions on anything we covered, if you're watching the rebroadcast, connect with the individual who invited you to participate in today's session, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300 outside the U.S. 630-393-9909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.